Hi, Brittany Quemby here with Swaay Health. Fall conference season is upon us, and for healthcare marketers, it's one of the busiest and most exciting times of the year. And I'm about to sit down with my friend and colleague, Colin Hung, to talk about some of the biggest themes that we're going to see at the conference, what we're most excited about, what conference he's most excited about, even though you're not supposed to pick your favorites, and some of the metrics that we should be using to track event success. So enjoy our episode. You're not going to want to miss our 3 top things that we need in our survival kit for this coming fall conference. Enjoy the show.
Swaay Health.
Colin, welcome to the show.
I am excited to be here. I love the studio you have.
This is my basement studio. Welcome.
I love it. This is going to be a lot of fun.
So today we're talking about fall conferences, and I'm in my cozy sweater. We got our cozy fireplace. We are, channeling all the fall vibes.
We are indeed, and it's very appropriate. The only thing that we don't have is the changing fall color leaves out the windows quite yet.
Quite yet. There's a few little pieces, but not yet. Let's hold on to a little bit of the warm weather while we still can. Okay, so let's talk about fall conferences. What are you most looking forward to this fall and for fall conference season? And is there any big, trends or themes that you think we're going to hear this fall?
Yeah. Well, yeah, there are lots of conferences this fall that I'm looking forward to. Of course, there's health. There's AHIMA. There is the NextGen user conference, the Oracle Health user conference, HCIC, SHSMD. There's just so many. I mean, there's so many conferences. I love attending them all, as you know. I love going to the sessions and the exhibit halls and things and just learning so much. So, and of course, seeing the people. So yeah, very much looking forward to the fall season. And, even though it's the same cities, Orlando, Nashville, it's still a lot of fun to go to those places, a lot of good eating in those places. But I think for the fall, I think it's pretty much going to be the same as the spring in terms of topics.
Right.
And I think the big topics, number one, of course, AI. But I think the tone might be changing a little bit in the fall. So I think what we've been seeing in 2025 is that more people are talking about more practical uses of AI. So they're not talking about, is AI coming for your job, or is AI going to do a lot of clinical stuff? It's a lot more like workflow related, like more practical stuff. So I think we're going to see that continue in the fall. And I think we're going to hear a little bit more about cybersecurity, a little bit about interoperability, especially given all the changes and the initiatives that CMS and OH have put forward, or the ONCE, ASTP have put forward. And I think we're going to hear a lot more about revenue cycle. I think that one topic is the one I would say is probably rising. I think a lot of organizations are really challenged by revenue cycle right now, and I think that's going to be pretty hot this fall.
I'm happy to hear that, because I feel like as all of us healthcare marketers, as we go to these conferences, we hear the same thing about AI all the time. So it's nice to hear that maybe there'll be some different themes, or maybe even just different perspectives on AI. I felt like that way about interoperability for a while. It was the same thing. And then, we started to get some different nuggets about that. So I'm excited to, that hopefully we can hear some new, new information about AI, and maybe, like you said, some more like practical uses about the automation. Now, I know you're not supposed to pick favorites, like children, you're not supposed to pick favorites, but there's always one that you're like, maybe I like a little more. That might be controversial, but in terms of conferences, is there one, if you had to pick a favorite, is there one that comes to mind that you're, most excited about?
It is really hard. I mean, I love going to health, right? Because it is unique, in the production value is super high, right? Like much like Vive. I love that conference. I also love SHSMD and HCIC because I think just being amongst marketers and seeing people who have that marketing energy, I think is really cool. But I have to say that the conference I'm most looking forward to, and it's more of a set of conferences, are actually the user conferences. So, between John and myself, we're going to, the NextGen user conference, like I mentioned, Charm Health's user conference, Oracle. John just went to the Epic one. We're going to eClinicalWorks, and I think I mentioned Oracle Health. So those conferences are really exciting. I find that going to the user conferences, first of all, you're talking to people actually using those products. Now, these all happen to be EHRs.
Right.
And, contrary to what most people think, they're not there just to complain. Like, they are legitimately trying to help each other, help with their peers, figure out, like, hey, here's how we use the tool to solve this problem. Maybe by telling my story, I can help some others. And then, of course, the companies are always putting out the latest releases and talking about where they're going in the future. So I always find those conferences to be very, very insightful, because there you're getting real insights into where people want to go, where people are pushing their vendors to go next. And so, and usually they're a lot of fun, right? And seeing all the people from those companies, it's always a great time. So I always love those user conferences. Those are my favorites.
I feel like that takes us back to our old EHR days when we had a user conference of our own. And you're right, but people loved going and being able to share their experiences. And yes, maybe grumble a little bit, but it was really about learning about new tools and, making their workflow better for them and for their patients. So I love that. I also love, I thought you were going to say RSNA, because I know you do love going to RSNA, and it's in Chicago around Christmas time, but I'm sure that'll be also super fun.
I mentioned, it is like children. Like, RSNA is so unique in our space, at least for me, because it's one of the few conferences where you can get hands-on with the devices and actually see things that you can touch, right? Because a lot of times at HIMSS and Health and Vive and others, it's all software, right? So you get to see it, sure. But when you go to RSNA, like, you can actually hold the ultrasound, the device.
Like a tangible item.
Yeah, there are models, like actors, who go into a fake CT scanner and show how it works, and the things rotate, and the booths are just enormous, right? So it is like being at like I would call it Disneyland a little bit, because the booths are just next level. So, and there's so many interesting things happening in that space, and it's not a space we normally cover. So I'm always excited to see what's new. So that one's fun for very different reasons too.
And, so as healthcare marketers, we're always, trying to, track success and metrics. So I'm curious, in 2025, what are the metrics that we're tracking for success for these types of events, especially for these upcoming fall conference events? Is it, how many people you've scanned at the booth? Is it demos booked? Is it deals signed on site? What should we be tracking in this day and age to ensure, that these events are successful and that we can come back year after year?
It's a good question. And by the way, if you're still using number of badges scanned as your main metric for a conference, stop. Like, it's just not going to work. Yeah, I think, again, in the very old days, I mean like meaningful use days, that's where you could measure deals signed or opportunities uncovered at a conference. I think in 2025, that's unrealistic, because I've interviewed so many people, marketers, CIOs, CMIOs, and they all say the same thing. They do not go to conferences to discover new things from the exhibit hall. They go to conferences to learn from peers. So they'll go to the sessions, and then they'll go and visit with vendors that they are already working with, or vendors who they are already interested in at the exhibit hall. So they're not really wandering the exhibit hall looking for something new anymore. That doesn't really happen. So badge scans are not a good metric. I think the metrics really that people should be looking at, and who are measuring, are things like deals influenced. So how many people who are in your pipeline showed up at that conference? So, and then how many meaningful conversations did you have? And by meaningful, meaning more than just the 2 seconds that you saw them at your booth and you scanned their badge. So did you have a meaningful demo with somebody? Did you have a meaningful hallway conversation? Did you stand in the lunch line and have a good conversation? All of those are things that I would track. And then things like, how many partnerships, relationships did you start, or that did you further while you were at the conference? Like, I think those kinds of things are more pragmatic. And frankly, that's where I think most of the value of these conferences are at. And then, yes, you can go in terms of like awareness, like some general metrics of, well, how many attendees were there? Sometimes some conferences will tell you how many people actually came to the exhibit hall, so you can get a relative number of impressions and things like that. So you can get some of those metrics, but really for me, it's the influence. how many deals did you influence while being at this conference, and how many new connections did you make?
Yeah, that's a good point. And I think it's always kind of changing. And sometimes we need to do a little bit of the old school. But then, I think the new school of it's not always just, how many badges scanned that really kind of, moves the needle.
Yeah, and I think one of the biggest things, and we've talked about this before lots of times, right? Some of the best value you can get at a conference is not standing in your booth, right? It's actually going to the session. Of course, if it's your customer, you should definitely be there. But also, if it's somebody you want to do business with, you should be in that room, ask questions, or come up to them afterwards and talk. Don't give them a sales pitch. Ask them questions about the presentation they just gave. Or, heaven forbid, just go to learn, right? If there's somebody that is speaking about a particular challenge, maybe it's a challenge that you tangentially impact, just learning and hearing how they're presenting it, how they solved it, can be very valuable insights for you for your marketing, but also as a salesperson. Right. So definitely encourage people to actually go to the sessions.
Yeah, and I mean, that's kind of one of my next questions is, like, in your experience, are these conferences all about the sessions and learning, or just the exhibit floor? Or are you finding some of those nuances, like you said, in the hallways, or in the aisles of the exhibit hall, or at, the parties? Where do you find the best nuggets, I guess, of those events?
So I will say, I think the answer to that question depends on who you are. And I think this is pretty key if you're a marketing leader or a sales leader, is because it's very rare to find someone who does all of that really, really well. Because if you are more introverted, then sending that person to the parties afterwards is not really going to be a great use of their time. Right. They may go to one party, maybe talk to 2 people, and then they're going to leave. Nothing wrong with that, right? But versus outgoing, life of the party kind of person who may meet 20 people in that same party and forge some new connections. But that person is unlikely to want to sit in a room for an hour listening to someone lecture about how they solve a problem, or go up and talk to them afterwards, or ask a question. So I think all of it's valuable, but I think you get different things, and if you deploy the right people to those, you'll get the most out of it. So send your introvert and the intellect to those sessions, because they'll enjoy it and they'll ask good questions, and they'll hunt down people who ask questions from the audience. Right. And then send your gregarious, outgoing people to the parties, because there's definitely value in that. And I've done both, and I think there's different value. I think there's very different value. I know John, for example, is much better at the after-hour stuff than I am, but I tend to go to more sessions than he does, and we each get different value from being at those places. But I think if you, as an organization, can cover both, that's where you get the most.
It's kind of like a baseball team. You got to be strategic of where you're putting who on what base, or in the outfield, or up to bat at a certain point in time, right? Now, I know it's tough because, we go to a lot of conferences in general throughout the year. A lot of organizations can't go to every conference. And, these days we're kind of pick and choosing, whether we're going to a few big conferences or some small, intimate user group conference or regional conferences. But, for the big fall conferences, do we need to be at all of them, or can we pick and choose? What's a good strategy to really kind of hone in on these types of conferences?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So I think if you'd asked me 3 years ago, I would have said, absolutely not. You don't have to be at every conference. As long as the target, one reason to go to a conference obviously is your target market going to be there? Another one would be if there's a customer speaking, maybe you want to support them. Those are good reasons to be there. But if it's just to be there and because you think you need to be there, I would say it's probably not a good reason. So I don't think you have to be at every conference. That was my answer. However, I think in 2026 and going forward, I'm going to change my answer to say, I actually do think you have to be at more conferences than you have in the past. Maybe not as an exhibitor, but certainly as an attendee. And definitely, if you can, as a speaker. And the reason I say that is because with more and more AI out there, and with more and more capabilities, like now you can write an entire podcast episode completely inside AI. You can even use AI to generate video of yourself, right? And I think with that, there is going to be a decline in the validity of solo videos and podcasts that come out, even written word. And so the only place where you can't fake it is when you're live with an audience, interacting with people, showcasing your knowledge, showcasing that you're there and supporting the industry. And so I think because of that, the only place you can really do that effectively is at conferences. So I think in 2026 going forward, I would actually recommend people go to more conferences than before, because I think it'll show better. Like it'll really validate you as an expert, as a thought leader, and so forth, more so than publishing like a podcast a week, right, of your own kind of thing. So
yeah, and I think it adds to that authenticity of, yes, I was actually there. This is what I heard. You know, it's kind of you know, the beat on the street. You were actually there, heard what was going on versus, you know, what you could find online or what AI could generate for you.
Yeah, and I still think you have to be strategic. I mean, obviously, with limited budget, you can't go to everything. So I still think you have to use your judgment. But I think, you know, if you have the budget, if you have the time, I would err on, yeah, you know what, go as an attendee and go to the sessions, go to the parties, meet with people, wander the exhibit hall, do those kinds of things. And I think you'll find that if you get the right person to be there, the right representative, it will pay off.
Let's talk survival of conferences. So, you know, I'm curious in terms of if you had to have a survival kit, you know, 3 things in your survival kit for conferences or, you know, upcoming fall conferences, you know, what would that be? I think for a lot of us and healthcare marketers, it would be caffeine. You don't drink caffeine or I guess coffee. So what would be your top 3 if you had to name them?
Oh wow, that's a great question. We should probably do like what's in your survival kit, you know, vlog or at least some pictures. So number 1 for me, and I got this. Well, the brand has changed because of you, but number 1 is a protein bar. It is absolutely essential because, at least for me, I very rarely eat breakfast, and I'm usually starving by 10. And most conferences now don't have great food, and if they do, it's like a sweet donut or whatever. And sometimes you just don't want that. So having a bunch of, I usually carry 2, and I've started eating the ones that you love, the pure protein ones. So I love those ones now. So I carry 2 of them in my bag all the time, and usually by the end of the day, I've eaten at least 1 of them.
Great, I've influenced you.
Yes, you have influenced me. And then also, you know, just practically, it's a lot cheaper than eating whatever you can get at the conferences, because that's very expensive food, right? But that's number 1. Number 2, right along with it, is water. And this is something I have to commend all conferences for. A lot more water stations. It used to be you couldn't find them. And now they're everywhere. And so I carry a water bottle. It's a roll-up one. It's a flexible one. The reason why I like that one is because as you drink, it gets lighter and it shrinks. So it's perfect.
And easy to travel with, like if you're flying with it.
Exactly. So I have one of those bottles, and I'm constantly filling it up. So definitely have to have water because you know, you just need to stay hydrated, especially in places like Las Vegas, Orlando, even Nashville. I find it very dry in those places. So definitely that. And number 3, which is going to sound really odd, but I think you definitely have to have something to give away. And I've seen people now who are just going to conferences as an attendee have this. It could be like a little pen, a tchotchke, not huge quantities, but just something to initiate a conversation. You meet somebody, and instead of handing them a card, I've seen now people actually hand them something. Because, I mean, cards are good, but most people now are just like, hey, we'll just scan my LinkedIn QR code, right? So you don't have anything tangible to remember that you met this person. So I've seen some very forward-thinking people like hand something like a little tchotchke, like a fidget spinner, or like I said, a pen, something very simple, or even a notepad or some sticky notes with their email and information on it. I think that's very cool. I would add that to my kit.
Have you seen those credit cards that people have? I feel like one of our friends had them at the conference. It was a credit card that looked like a gold credit card with their QR code on it. So then it was easy, like they just had to pull it out and could scan it. I thought that was a neat little, you know, upscale way to like connect with people, right? Rather than just like scanning their badge or looking someone up on LinkedIn.
Yeah, I think all of those are kind of just something to remember all the people you meet, right? Because you're going to meet a lot. I mean, if I didn't pick that, though, I would say definitely I would carry a pen because I'm always finding that I need to write something down, either because someone told me that, you know, and for me, I could put it in my phone, I know, but I find I remember it better if I just write it somewhere. So I'm always carrying a pen around.
I love that. I think, you know, for me, definitely protein bar. I'm a big protein bar fan. So like you, I'm usually skipping breakfast and always need to have something on me. Mine is usually either protein bar or nuts. So at least it's gonna like keep me satiated for the day. And then for me, it's um, comfortable shoes because we're always walking around and standing long. And, you know, I remember back in the day when you had to wear like heels to a conference. And I'm so glad that we've like shifted away from that narrative that we don't need to be wearing heels. When I see someone in heels, I'm like, oh my gosh, like all power to you, but I can't do it anymore. So, you know, comfortable sneaker or shoes. And then for me, I need a lip gloss or like a chapstick because as you said, even in the drier weathers and we're talking a lot and you know, if we're on camera, a little lip chap goes a long way to like keep at least your lips moist.
It's okay. Like we have so many tips like this. I love obviously comfortable shoes, very important. It's not something I would pack, but definitely clothing choice is very important in terms of like it's cold in some of these conference centers. I know you get pretty cold. So like having like I see a lot of women bringing sweaters. I see people wearing long sleeves to events and just tolerating the fact that you'll have to go outside at some point.
For sure.
But you know, I have to say like golf attire works really well because first of all, it doesn't wrinkle. Second of all, it's very small to pack in your suitcase, and they come in those basic colors like black and gray and so forth. So I'm all into the golf attire kind of materials, and I also know merino wool. A lot of people merino wool. Merino wool. A lot of people wear that as well because it doesn't wrinkle. Anyway. We can get totally a whole thing about fashion.
Yeah, I know. I think it's great because I always have this conversation, and I'm gonna say this, but I remember reading back in the day in magazines like day to night outfits, and it never really affected me until I come to conferences and I need an outfit that can transform me from day to night. So, you know, a blazer over a dress and then the dress at nighttime. And I remember talking to Win Hansen about it, and he was like, who knew that day to night in teen magazine was going to then, you know, overflow into your adult life at conferences. But it's so true. I need something that I can, because I'm at the booth literally from 7 a.m. till 10 p.m. So I need something that can, you know, come with me from day to night.
And it's so funny because it's reversed for me. I bring the blazer, but I don't wear it when I'm walking around or doing my stuff. But then at night I throw it on and go, well, there you go.
Where I'm like blazer during the day, blazer off at night.
But you're right. You do need something to at least mix it up. I think though now this, like the heels thing, it has changed because I know before people would have to literally go back to the room and change. But now seeing someone in the same outfit that they wore at the booth, I don't think people are like, whatever, right? Because it's just, we all know like why bother packing like a whole separate suit to wear to an event? I mean, it's different if you're taking out customers, but for the most part, I think people just wear the same thing and it's cool.
Totally. Well, Colin, any parting words for our listeners as we gear up for fall conferences? I can't wait to see all of our community, all of our friends, our clients, our partners. Anything that you want to add before we kind of wrap this up?
No, I think other than, hey, if you see myself, John, you at a conference, please come up and say hello. You know, we don't bite and we won't put you on camera unless you really want to. But yeah, we just love seeing everyone. It's always fun when people come up and say hello. And you know, and so yeah, so if you see us, please stop by, and we'd love to talk to you.
Awesome. Well, thanks, Colin, for being here with me today.
Thanks for letting me.
I feel like now I'm just getting a little bit hot with this fire, but it was nice to be able to do it in this setting. And thanks for joining me.
Yeah, no, thanks for having us in your basement studio.
Yeah, there you go. Thanks, Colin. Thanks everybody for watching. I really loved discussing all of the fall conference stuff with Colin. The one in particular thing that I loved was the new way to maybe track success for conferences. It's not always just scanning badges. There's other things that we can be doing to track the success for next year. So thanks again for watching and tune into the next one.